Welcome into episode number 3 of Jungle Juice. Sam Gormley and Mick Nelson with you. Mick, how are you?
I'm doing quite well, Sam. How are you doing today?
Great. We are a week and a half away from the kickoff to the 2023 Cincinnati Bengals season. We're going to be in the Mistake by the Lake very, very soon. Well, at least we won't be, but our hopes and dreams will be, I guess. I'm not planning on going to the Mistake by the Lake.
I thought we were going to the Cleveland game.
Sorry to break this to you. Instead, we're just going to be there the next 3 out of the last, or I guess it's the next 2 weeks. We get to be there for Ravens and then the Seahawks, or not the Seahawks, the Rams. And speaking of that, I keep meaning to actually take the time to look up. And if someone watching knows the answer to this, I'd love to know. This will be the third straight home game for the Bengals against the Ravens. So the third straight game. I don't count the Packers game. That's preseason. So you had the last game of the season, playoffs, first game of this season. And I'm wondering how many times that's happened in NFL history where a team hosts the same team in 3 straight games at the same stadium.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's happened very much at all.
No, I mean,
because this is the only scenario that it could happen. Yeah.
It's a very weird thing that Ravens are playing here three meaningful games in a row. It's I would think the only team that it could have happened for the Bengals is maybe the Steelers, but I know it didn't happen. But if they ended the season with the Steelers and then had a playoff game against the Steelers and then opened up with them the next season, but that's really, I know this is the first time this has ever happened for the Bengals, but
yeah, it has to be. And I've been meaning to go back and look. And if I was better at my stats, I'd go back and look throughout NFL history. But I just found it very interesting. But we're getting off topic on today's show. Got a jam-packed one, a lot to get to. 53-man roster came out yesterday. Mick and I are going to talk about our surprise cuts, surprise makes. The practice squad was released, so we get to go through the practice squad. There's a new quarterback out there. How do we feel about him? A couple of players that left went to new opportunities. Should the Bengals have kept them? How do we feel about that? And then we're going to dive all the way into the defense. Now that the defense is pretty much solidified, there are a couple of questions that I think is primarily on the back end of the defense that we'll talk about. Return game as well as something interesting is, how much faith do we have in Charlie Jones? Is Chris Evans going to be the kickoff returner and so on? That's pretty much some of our big topics of this week. And as always, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. That is, and if you have any questions or topics that you want us to cover, make sure you drop it down there in the comment section. Luckily, Mick, our technology is so good that I just get to click on it and it just pops right up on the screen. So it's awesome. Technology is awesome, and it makes things really interesting. So if you got something, make sure you leave it for us.
For sure. Yeah, please voice your opinions to us.
Tell us we're wrong. We're fine with that too. We get told that all the time.
I have a wife. I'm told I'm wrong all the time.
Oh man, is she going to pop up in the comments section now that you've mentioned her?
No, she actually doesn't tell me I'm wrong very often, which is
as I know, my grandma gave me a T-shirt, and it said, I may be left-handed, but I'm always right. So it's a great one. But I also want to make sure we give a shout out over to Josh Isles at WDN Today. We're also streaming on his Facebook page. Appreciate him for doing that for us. Josh, good man. Make sure you follow him and follow us for all of your Bengals content needs. But Mick, the biggest story of the day, Joe Burrow is back.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is back at practice. What was your reaction when you saw the video?
Yeah, I didn't have much of a chance to have a reaction just because work was pretty intense today. But the brief moment I had was a moment of exaltation. I didn't look into this, but I wonder, did he arrive earlier this season after injury than he did last year after the appendectomy?
It's probably pretty similar as far as that. As appreciate Tommy Lipscomb from Houday Nation. I know he's dropping in and leaving the comment. I think it's probably pretty similar as far as time, but there's one big difference is that I know when Joe Burrow came back last year, since he had the appendectomy, he lost so much weight.
Yes.
And he came back and he was thin, he was frail. Whereas right now, he hasn't lost any muscle mass. He's still been able to work out up top and so on, and really probably been able to still work out his legs. So I think that the gap between where he needs to be and right now is shorter than it needs to be. And even I see here one Sammy Nelson is locked in and listening. No, when Sammy Nelson pops in here, Mick, that it's got to be a big show.
Who day to my sister, Sammy Nelson? She had a big day today. She had, told her about the podcast, and she's immediately on. Sister of a lifetime right there.
Sisters supporting the brothers. But I think that the Burrow news has to make you feel better, because I know last week we were talking that we weren't necessarily concerned that Burrow wasn't going to be ready for the season opener against the Browns. But I think now that we've seen this, I'm not worried at all.
No, I'm not worried at all. And honestly, I wasn't too worried, like even while the rehab process was kind of going on. I think the whole workout before the Packers game was pretty telling that he was on a good track to make it back by week 1. So, and you bring up a good. I want to add on to your point about him losing all that muscle mass last year. That he looked frail, and then to add on to that, just because of the struggles in weeks 1 and 2, he was also trying to work out the kinks with a brand new offensive line last year. So, you have that continuity this year, albeit you do have Jonah switching positions, and you do have Orlando Brown coming in to play left tackle. But it should be a better transition this year just because of the continuity of the offensive line, in addition to, he didn't, lose like a good 15, 20 pounds from this injury. So,
yeah, 100%. And I think that all of that combines in makes it to where I'm not really too worried about it. And Mick, I got to ask, because do you appreciate a good conspiracy theory every once in a while?
Oh, I love conspiracy theories.
Well, so have you followed the Joe Burrow conspiracy theory with all of this?
No, I don't even know what's going on with that.
Okay, so the conspiracy theory is, and if you agree or disagree, leave it in the comments. And I'm not by no means saying that I agree, is that all of this is a hoax. That's what they say. Burrow is faking the calf injury because this is his way of sitting out camp without looking like a holdout for the contract. That's been the conspiracy theory that I've seen some people push on social media. I think it was proven wrong today that he took the field without a new contract, but I appreciate a good conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I feel like if that were the case, I feel like if something would have leaked by now, saying that, Burrow is holding out on this extension and whatnot. So I was thinking more of the conspiracy theory along the lines of like, oh, well, Burrow's been ready to go this whole time, and, and they just don't, they want to catch the Browns off guard or whatever in week 1. But the fact that he's even coming back this early, I just think it was a legit injury, and he was just rehabbing from it. And it's as simple as that.
I'm assuming you're now in the same boat, though, where you have no concern that he's going to be ready for that Browns game, correct?
No, I don't have any concern now whether the offense looks the best it could have. That'll be a different question. We could easily see a first 2 weeks of last year scenario again this year. So it's.
But with that is, let's just say, okay, Burrow is healthy. How much of the preseason would he have actually played? Like, how many snaps do you honestly think he would have played?
I don't think he would have played more than maybe 2.
Do you think he would have done one drive in the Atlanta game, maybe?
Yeah, I would say maybe 2, maybe one, probably 1. But I don't think it really matters with the preseason games more than it does with, having all those reps in camp. In the practices in general. And I think that's what the bigger concern I have is that he just hasn't had many reps on the days that aren't preseason games.
What it did open up, though, is more reps for that 53-man or the 90-man roster, and to whittle it down now to 53 that was released, I guess, a little over 24 hours ago. And then earlier today, they released the practice squad. Mick, last week we were talking about some of these battles. The big battle we talked about last week, though, primarily was kind of that final offensive tackle. You were jumping on Hakeem Adeniji train. I was on the Deontay Smith train, and Deontay Smith won out. And even to the point where Hakeem Adeniji, now, he very well could have been offered a practice squad spot and decided to go somewhere else, but not even on the Bengals anymore. Does that worry you at all, or what with Hakeem Adeniji?
No, it doesn't really worry me at all, and I'm actually kind of happy that the Bengals showed him some love and gave him an opportunity to go make it with a different NFL squad. I think that Hakeem Adeniji does deserve to be on an NFL roster somewhere. Um, and looking back on last week, and we kind of touched on this earlier before the show, it's that I do see the argument made for Deontay Smith. If you have two similar tackles in terms of skill set, you probably do want the guy that is under team control for a longer period of time than the other. And Deontay Smith was drafted in 2021. That means we have 2 years more of control over him. And Hakeem only had 1 year left on his contract. So that made a lot more sense, when that was kind of
And I think, too, with him, we've seen everything we're going to see from him, I believe. How much more does he really have to grow?
Hakeem he didn't really have much to grow, but we were talking about like a reliability factor or like a trustworthiness factors with players. And I've given Hakeem a lot of flack over the past couple of years just because I was tired of watching him start on a consistent basis. But he was proven to be that trustworthy guy. It seems like no matter where, an injury was happening on the offensive line, other than center, I guess, it seemed like Hakeem was either the first or the second guy to be called up to the starting five on the offensive line. And, so that's the part that I would be kind of worried about. I still think Deontay Smith is pretty raw, but, from what you've said and what I've heard around, it seems like he has had a very good camp. And I think that he does have a better athletic profile than Hakeem Adeniji.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. Some of the other surprise cuts we also talked about last week was, will they keep 7 wide receivers? And with that, obviously, that was dealing with Stanley Morgan. Stanley Morgan is back. He's on the practice squad. And I think that they ended up keeping pretty much an extra offensive lineman in place of Stanley Morgan. Or even you could say that they kept a fourth running back in place of Stanley Morgan. Do you think that was the right move?
So I don't think the offensive line is over in terms of the amount of players you have. They have 10, I believe. I thought they were having 10 going in. I think, honestly, where they kept the most spots or more spots than usual is probably running back, and then really on the defensive line. They're keeping 10 guys on the defensive line this year, which just seems like a crazy high amount. Or, not crazy, but it's a higher amount than years prior. No, I'm not worried about Stanley Morgan being gone, other than the fact that he was like our special teams ace and he was a run blocking receiver. I do kind of worry about the special teams unit as a whole this year, just because you have 2 prominent special teams players that did get cut yesterday.
And luckily, both are still back onto the practice squad, so you still have some of that to build upon. But at the same time, both those guys, listen, I like both of them, but at some point you got to get younger, and especially with a guy like Mike Thomas, who is in NFL terms is a grandpa. They call him Uncle Mike for a reason. Like, he is very old as far as NFL terms, and I think he was smart enough to know that. Steve Hall, he writes in and says, we wouldn't have kept Carman except for where he was drafted. I don't know that I necessarily disagree with that. If Jackson Carman was picked in the 6th round, would he still be on the Bengals?
No, he definitely wouldn't be, and he does have that 2nd round, grade, or he really had a 3rd round grade. So you'd think the potential might be there. I think Tommy hit on this a few times earlier in the Who Dey Nation group, but it's like he has all the talent in the world, and he just refuses to. It seems like he refuses to put the work in during the offseason for that. And for a team that prioritizes culture as much as Zach and the rest of the team do, and it is kind of surprising that we still have Jackson Carman on the roster.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all. And I think that there is hope that, I mean, because you look at Jackson Carman and you see he shows signs of, okay, like this guy could be pretty good. And I think the hope is that maybe one day he'll be able to, one of these guys will be able to break through and get to this guy. I don't know that I've seen enough to make me believe that that's going to be the case. But I don't know. I know Steve also says about Drew Sample. Hard to believe still both are still here. I know Mick and I are both. I mean, I don't want to say that we're on team Drew Sample, but we both are more pro Drew Sample than the average Bengals fan because I think we both realize that his role is as a blocking tight end, and he's good at it.
Yeah, I'm more pro Drew Sample than I am pro Jackson Carman. The only reason why I give Drew Sample any flack is just where he was drafted. Like, if he were a fifth-round tight end, I probably would love having Drew Sample on my team. So, yeah, I think this team kind of missed Drew Sample last year, especially when, they were trying to implement the scheme of running more under center last year, and, they could have had more two tight end sets on run blocking downs. So, I don't know. I'm kind of happy Drew Sample's back because also you have him at a bargain this year. I can't remember how much is he making. Probably.
I think he's like the vet min. So I think it is not a lot whatsoever. And here's the thing with a guy like him is if he comes out and he gets hurt again or doesn't play well, then he's a free agent. And you just say, Drew, I appreciate you taking the time. And he also seems like he's a great locker room guy, which, is important to Zach Taylor and the staff that they brought is they want guys who people enjoy being around. Were you surprised and even more so that not back on the practice squad about Raymond Johnson III?
So wait, is he back? I haven't looked at the practice
squad. He has not been added to the practice squad yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he's not on the practice squad. I'm not surprised he didn't make the roster.
That could mean that he's maybe hoping that he gets a 53-man spot.
I think he kind of deserves one after what he's shown this preseason. Same with Owen Carney. Thanks for the comment there, Steve, because I think both played really well this preseason.
But I think that they're both at positions that are incredibly deep.
Yes. I don't think they have like a chance making the roster here. Like, I think the front four, I really only had them taking 8 guys. And even adding 2, I didn't think either of those guys were going to make the 53-man roster anyways.
But I think a strong argument could be made that those guys could be, and we were kind of listing them out number-wise, 54, 55, in that range of like the next guy out.
Yeah, they definitely could have, especially Raymond Johnson III, and I know Tommy loves Raymond Johnson III. He's been hyping him up all preseason. Yeah, they could have been the 53 or 54 or 55 man guys. I don't know if you'd put 2 defensive ends in there, and you also got to think Jeff Gunter is also gone. They actually spent a draft pick on.
Do believe he went back onto the practice squad.
He's Jeff on the Gunter practice squad. So, do you have the practice squad pulled up at all? I haven't even taken a look here.
I can pull out the good old. But speaking of practice squad, Will Grier was added to the practice squad. He signs for them, picking up via the Dallas Cowboys. Will Grier, West Virginia, hasn't done a lot in the league. Had a good preseason. How do you feel about Will Grier as kind of that quarterback 3, maybe even number 2?
Yeah, I think he's probably an upgrade over Jake Browning. I don't say that for a fact or, even a for sure opinion. But, he did have a higher draft grade than Jake Browning did going into the league. I feel good. I feel good about having Will Grier as QB 3 potentially. And is this the first time he's been on the practice squad for the Bengals? I thought.
No, yeah,
this is talking about him at some point, a few years ago, maybe joining.
Well, I do know that our good friend and yours, Adam Johnson, was big on the Will Grier train coming out of college. He wanted the Bengals to draft Will Grier. I guess was he the 19 draft. He might have been. He was
19 or
driving that
20?
train,
Probably
and
19.
I'm assuming it was 19 because I'm assuming that Adam would be driving the Burrow train. So I found it interesting that they grabbed him, because I'd be interested is, if our worst nightmare comes through and something happens to Burrow, would they pull what they did back in 2020, where they pull up the practice squad quarterback Brandon Allen at that time to start over the true backup and Jake Browning? Would Will Grier start over Jake Browning in that scenario? It'd
So,
be interesting.
yeah, I think it'd be interesting as well. And also, it's like, so what were the motivations between picking Driscoll? Wait, not Driscoll, Brandon Allen over who's the other
Ryan
back?
Finley.
Ryan Finley.
Do we need to talk about that?
I don't know. I saw a pretty good win out of Ryan Finley. I mean, I was pretty.
You also saw quite a bit of bad out of Ryan Finley too.
I've also seen plenty of bad out of Brandon Allen. I mean,
yeah. Welcome to the backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I got your practice squad here. So you got Dominique Davis, the defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Alan George, who I think didn't have a great preseason, played decent at times last year.
Practice squad guy, Alan George.
Nate Gilliam, the center.
Usually on the practice squad.
Jeff Gunter.
Okay.
Shaka Hayward, the linebacker. Tanner Hudson, the tight end, which I think is good that they kept him on the practice squad. Shedrick Jackson. Bo Jackson's nephew, is that what it is? Sidney Jones IV, which I like that he's on the practice squad. He's a good insurance policy at corner as well. Jackson Kirkland, your number one fan.
Oh.
Kwame Lassiter. Stanley Morgan. Tyler Murray. And Mike Thomas as of now. And then there's also been some rumors that they picked up a guy from the Browns as well, but they have to get him in and do everything before they can make that official.
Okay. Yeah, no, it seems like a lot of the same guys from last year on the practice squad this year. So maintaining the continuity on the back end of things there, I mean, that's I think that's always a plus. Yeah, this is a surprise that Jackson made the practice squad. He did play pretty hard in those games, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's also just a wide, a wide receiver backup. You're just having depth there. Steve says, reality is we can't spend on backup quarterbacks. If Burrow goes down, we'll make a trade for a decent vet. I mean,
I don't agree.
I think that there is, the fact about it is Burrow goes down, they're having a lot of issues. Travis is dropping in as well, also known as Jesus. Shout out to him.
Yeah, thanks, Jesus. Steve, I don't agree with your comment, and unless if Burrow's only down for a couple weeks, because if Burrow goes down for any extended period of time, the Bengals should be doing everything and everything they can to tank. We should be tanking for a higher draft pick. That's just my personal take on it.
The other guy so the Bengals had really only one player that truly left other than Hakeem Adeniji, as we mentioned, and that was Trent Taylor, who was one of those vet guys that he didn't have to pass through waivers. He could sign wherever he wanted. And he goes to the Chicago Bears. And Mick, I found the fan reaction to Trent Taylor very interesting, because for me, when I think back at the Trent Taylor era, I'm going to think of two things. And I'm sure they'd probably be the same two things that you'll think of with Trent Taylor. Number one, the 2-point conversion in the AFC Championship game. Absolutely. I'll always remember that. One of the differences in that game. The second one is just the backflips when they won out of the victory formation. But other than that, he's fine. But I was just surprised that there was so much Trent Taylor love.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think the guy that replaces Darius Phillips as the returner is just going to get all the love in the world because he's not fumbling the ball away whenever he catches the ball. But also, I did like Trent Taylor. See, I mean, anybody that's followed football for a while, they saw him make a few plays with the Niners and thought he had some potential there. And then, the fact that he was like our wide receiver 6, it's not necessarily a bad wide receiver 6 to have. It's not like he was incompetent as a receiver or anything like that. It's kind of sad to see him go, but I don't know. You drafted 2 potential studs at receiver in this past draft, and then obviously you're not giving Trent Taylor a spot over Irwin, so it's like, it's kind of like that issue with Ray Johnson and Owen Carney or whoever on the defensive line. There's a lot of depth at the wide receiver position, and I think that Trent Taylor, honestly, he might be wide receiver like 4 in Chicago already, because like it's not like they're that deep over there.
Yeah, and I agree here with what Tommy says. Is, Jones and Yoshivas have more upside than Trent Taylor.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think Trenton Irwin is a guy that Burrow really trusts, and that's big in it. And I mean, the question would have come down to it is, I think they'd have been more likely to keep Stanley Morgan than they would have Trent Taylor.
Yeah, no, I think they would have as well, especially with the contributions Stanley Morgan provides that aren't receiving. Like you don't find, many great special teams players, which I'm still really surprised that Stanley Morgan's not on the team. I think that's got to be the biggest.
Now with the new practice squad rules where you can do the game day pull-ups and all of that, it's like 3 times throughout the season. It can change. There could be some roster gymnastics with that too. So you never entirely know. I think he's a good insurance policy, though, since he is on the defensive line there.
I'm waiting for Bill Belichick to snatch him up at any moment now. It's going to happen.
Last week, we went all the way into the offense as a whole. We were previewing position by position. So since we're getting closer and closer to the start of the NFL season, which starts a week and a day, Chiefs-Lions next Thursday, we're going to dive into the defense. And I know we've been kind of touching on this at points, so we're just going to go position by position, give some thoughts on it. And, Lou Anarumo as a whole. And before that, Mick, I know we've had this conversation before we started this podcast, but I'm not sure there has been a man in Cincinnati sports history that deserves more of an apology from the fan base as a whole than Lou Anarumo, because I am usually one of the guys that is very pro-coach, and I was done with good old Lou Anarumo. And you know what? He has made me put my foot in my mouth, and I have never been more proud to do that, because I don't want another defensive coordinator. He's right up there with Mike Zimmer in like my eyes. I'm Team Lou. I don't want him to go.
Yeah, the only one that deserves probably a bigger apology is probably Zach, just because he's the head of the whole thing. And
well, see, I've always been on Team Zach, so I don't know Zach an apology.
See, I hated Zach way more than I hated Lou in the dark years of 2019 and in 2021. But just to get back on the topic of Lou, I mean, yeah, Lou is. I think the thing I like most about Lou is that he has shown an ability to specifically game plan for teams. And
like the Chiefs.
Yeah, like the Chiefs. Like he has their number in his back pocket. You don't see the Chiefs moving the ball against the Bengals like they usually do against other teams. And I think he's a mastermind when it comes to coaching up the secondary and different coverages back in the back end of the defense there. And I think he's a great modern day defensive coordinator, especially given where his skill set lies. I mean, we are in a pass heavy league, and you need somebody that really knows how to work the secondary to be a good defensive coordinator.
I completely agree with what Steve says too. Is maybe the thing that he's the best at is making a quick adjustment or two at halftime. That's been the story of those Chiefs games. Is that in most of them, the Chiefs had big first halves, awful in the second half, because Anarumo made some changes on that. I am 100% on Team Lou Anarumo, and part of that is that he's gotten his guys in there. And I think one of the topics, especially with the defensive line, that when I think of Lou Anarumo and the guys that he wants is guys that are extremely versatile.
Yeah, no, he really likes guys that he can plug and play anywhere. And you see that with I don't know really with the Miles Murphy draft pick. I think they might try playing him inside at some point.
I think without question they will. I mean, Sam Hubbard has bounced inside and outside. I think most of these guys that they're getting are able to play any of those 4 positions alongside the line, and that is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, no, and then I actually made a point of this, especially with the defensive line. Are we going to see, and we kind of did this last year, but I think we're going to see a lot more rotation with these guys. I mean, I think, um, I think the Bills kind of started doing this a couple years ago where, they didn't really have like four de facto, like, front four defensive linemen. They're just constantly rotating guys in and out throughout the game, making sure everybody's fresh. And, I think we're going to see that a lot more this season, especially given the depth that the defensive line has.
Yeah, and I think that with that, there's a couple of points that I wanted to make, and I first wanted to start off with this up top is Trey Hendrickson. Big sack number his first year, little lower last year. What's your if you're setting the over under for Trey Hendrickson sacks 2023? Supposedly Trey Hendrickson has been an absolute menace in camp this year.
That guy just seems nuts. He's got to be like the craziest guy on the rock.
I love that he got into the fight day one with Orlando Brown Jr. And when they had to like pull him off of him, he had like a rope burn along his neck. And he's just like, yeah, nothing wrong with it. But if you're setting that over under, does he hit 15?
No. I don't think he does.
What about if I set it at 12 and a half?
I would set it at 10 and a half or 11 and a half. I think that's right where the sweet spot is for him. But I mean, you got to think. I don't think Lou like prioritizes pass rush as much as other defensive coordinators do. I think that if we're looking back at last season, yeah, there were some like downs or games where Trey Hendrickson absolutely dominated who he's playing against, and he racked up the sack totals. But you look at the sacks. A lot of them were coverage sacks last year. So I think that Lou is still going to emphasize the back end, the defensive back room and the coverages back there. But, I don't think we'll see – I think we'll see probably around 10, 11, maybe 12 sacks this year.
The other guy that intrigues me a lot on that defensive line is Myles Murphy. Because I hate to use a disappointment in the preseason because it's the preseason and – it's the preseason, there's only so much that you can do. But he was really a non-factor in the preseason. And I know he didn't play against the Falcons because he had an illness, and that probably impacted him a little bit against the Commanders. But what are your expectations for him here in year one as a rookie in this Lou Anarumo system? Because he's behind a lot of studs in front of it.
Yeah, I'm not expecting him to get like a ton of snaps. Now that may change with the whole Joseph Ossai injury. He might be thrown to the Wolves a little bit more earlier on in the season because of that. But I think people thought Myles Murphy was just going to be the stud, pass rushing edge rusher, and I don't think that's necessarily a skill set. I see a lot more of Sam Hubbard's game in Myles Murphy than I do of like Trey Hendrickson or Joseph Ossai's game. So my expectations are I think he handles the run game pretty well. And I know he didn't look too great in the preseason. I don't know how much he was getting doubled in the Commanders game. I know he was, Munoz mentioned it that he was getting doubled a few times where he was getting doubled and that allowed Carney to get a sack or that allowed maybe Johnson. I can't remember who the other guy was. Probably Johnson.
Yeah, Raymond Johnson.
Yeah, to get a sack. So I don't know how much Myles Murphy was getting doubled in the preseason, but I don't know. I don't really have high expectations for him. I think we're going to see.
Is there something he would do that would disappoint? Like as if at the end of the season I say blank and he has this, you'd be like, well, that's a disappointment.
I don't know. I mean, if you grades as bad as Zach Carter did last year, I would say maybe that's a disappointment.
Make us the president of the Zach Carter fan club.
I'm hoping Zach Carter has a good second year. It sounds like he is going to have one. It sounds like he's totally retooled.
When he's all pro, you will have to buy a Zach Carter jersey and wear it.
That's fine. If he's an all pro, I'll definitely buy his jersey. Well, 2 years from now, I'll buy his jersey. I'm getting an I'm going to try to rotate defensive and offensive players. So
I feel like if Zach Carter is all pro this year, you need to get a Zach Carter tattoo or something because I think it's that wild of it actually potentially happening.
yeah, yeah, that would be a very fat chance considering he's not a starter on the defensive as a defensive tackle right now. But I don't know, Zach Carter. And so I mentioned jersey. I haven't gotten a new jersey yet, but I'm open to suggestions on the defensive side of the ball. If you're listening, throw it in the comments section. I'm leaning Jermaine Pratt because I wanted Trey Hendrickson, but there's no white Trey Hendrickson jerseys on Fanatics. And I tried looking for a custom one, but I think his character size on his last name is too long, and they won't let me pick it as a custom.
Steve's not specifically mentioning, but this is a good one. DJ Reader. But this also could be DJ Reader's last year.
Yeah, I love DJ Reader. I was going to get DJ Reader as a jersey too. That was, but I was like, he's only going to be here one more year. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
but,
it's Dax Hill. He's an option. Tyson Anderson. You know, you've got all Mike Thomas.
CTV could be an option too.
Yeah, that's good. You've got a lot of that. Moving on, linebackers. I feel like there's really not a whole lot to discuss. It's same thing as last year. Pratt and Wilson. I know we were both surprised that Jermaine Pratt is back.
Yeah. No, I thought after the whole
back.
locker room, after the Chiefs game, the whole locker room,
woo!
That video, I was like, oh shit, yeah, Jermaine Pratt's not coming back. It was good while it lasted. But no, He's back. He's back. I'm glad he's back. That having those two together as a tandem once again, this will be their third year in a row as the starting linebackers together, which it's just crazy the continuity this roster has kept over the past few years. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
And the coaching staff too,
yeah.
which is wild as well. And then, I mean, you look your backups, Marcus Bailey, Akeem Davis-Gaither, and Joe Bacci. I think that's a solid linebacker core.
Yeah, I think it's a solid linebacker core. I would have liked for them to have found a sixth guy. Now, out of the people that were on the 90-man roster, I didn't see a sixth guy on there to be on the active roster, and I don't blame them for only going 5.
Do you need 6 when you only play 2?
Yeah, I'd still keep 6. You got to think, I feel like linebackers get injured at a pretty high rate, don't they? I mean, I know Logan Wilson and Jermaine had a fairly healthy years last year, but I don't know. It seems like just one of those positions where you're just getting beat to death every game, and I feel like that depth could really get tested this year.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I'm happy with those 5, and I think you could maybe see a draft pick next year to kind of compete for those Marcus Bailey, Joe Bacci roles and so on, and then hope to fill the void if you get closer to where you can maybe drop a cut on Jermaine Pratt or so on. But I don't know. I think I'm happy with the way the linebacker core goes along. Corners, I think the biggest story for the corners is, for me at least, the number one storyline is how does Cheeto come back from the ACL injury? Yep. Especially at that cornerback position where cuts, movement, speed, he's looked good. It sounds like he's good, but you can never be too confident until you get out there and start guarding some dudes.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it sounds like he's bounced back pretty well during camp this year. I wonder if we do see CTB matching up with the wide receiver ones more this year than Cheeto, because eventually they're going to have to transition to that anyways, right? I mean, I don't think we're going to see Cheeto back after this year. This is the last year on his contract, and I love me some Cheeto. Don't get me wrong.
Flamin' Hot, Puffy. Is it Flamin' Hot Cheetos or
I love Flamin' Hot Cheetos too. Those are delicious. And I do love me some Cheeto Bay Awuzie. But yeah, you kind of got to wonder if they're going to start transitioning CTB to be that guy that matches up with the number one wide receiver, given how physical he is and how strong he looked. How strong he looked towards the end of last year.
And then I think the best part about Cheeto being out throughout most of training camp for CTB is guess who he's had to go up against all camp? Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase.
And is there really a much better receiver to go up against if you're trying to better your craft?
There are very few out there.
If they are, you can count them on one hand, and probably even less than that. Maybe even just one finger, and the guy, he'll be coming in December wearing purple. That's about it. But I think that's what I'm hoping is that we see as a whole is that we see CTB take that next step because he has shown some flashes after kind of being thrown into the wolves. I'm really excited. I'm hoping breakout sophomore year for CTB.
Yeah, no, actually, that's actually a bold prediction I have. It's one bold prediction I have this year. Cam Taylor-Britt, CTB, will be a second-team All-Pro.
Whoa.
If he's first-team All-Pro, even better. But I think he does make that big leap this year.
Listen, if he's a first-team All-Pro, then that's your jersey. You better be buying a CTB jersey with that. What about the rookies? I felt like DJ Ivey was kind of one of those guys that when he was drafted, 7th-round pick out of Michigan, or at Miami, rather, he was kind of thought to be a project. He was probably going to immediately just go straight to the practice squad, and he makes the team. But he deserved to make the team. I'm saying that. I think he was kind of one of the surprises of camp. And then I think I saw, Steve mentioned up here earlier with Lou Anarumo, speed. This secondary is fast as wow.
Yep. So I wasn't too surprised with the DJ Ivey making the 53-man roster. They usually like to keep 6 cornerbacks on the 53-man
I guess what I'm saying
roster.
with that is if you would have told me that June the 5th, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have thought it would have been Sidney Jones over him.
Jones for sure. Yeah, but
or even Alan George.
Yeah, I probably would have gone DJ Ivey over Alan George, but with DJ Ivey, and I think this is the big thing, and that I've kind of come to terms with is like, are you going to pick the guy? If you got guys with similar skill sets, are you going to pick the guy you just drafted and has 4 more years on his contract, or are you going to pick the guy that you signed to a 1-year vet minimum deal, or Alan George? Which it's not to put shame on Alan George there, but
and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I think it's interesting, and I think he in the long run, that's the right move is bringing in DJ Ivey because he showed some flashes. I think I'm thinking of a play, and it was either the Commanders game or it might have been the Packers game where he just came in, looked like he was beaten. The receiver ran a little curl rat, and he came in and just stuck his hand in and broke it up. It was like those are the little things that I wanted to see from cornerbacks in the preseason. It's just you're trying to pick up on those little things, and that was kind of the first time that I really thought, "Yep, this guy might be a steal, and he's going to make this roster."
Yeah, he definitely got a lot of reps in there in the preseason. Showed some flashes, had some nice a couple of nice PBUs in those 3 games. I think he could make a meaningful contribution at some point during his tenure with the Bengals.
The one worry I do have with the cornerback position is slot corner depth. And I think this can be twofold because you have Jalen Davis, and how confident are we in Jalen Davis?
So are they not looking at moving DJ Turner to the slot role?
That's a possibility. Or there's also the possibility of, do you take Dax Hill out of safety and make him be a slot corner and then throw in a Tyson Anderson or a Jordan Battle? And
so I would not throw in Battle to the Wolves yet because I thought Jordan Battle was going to be the other starting safety after this preseason, and he's shown that he still has some growing to do before I can trust him there. Dax in the slot corner, it's intriguing because sometimes you do like having a slot corner that has some length to him, and Dax does have a little bit of length. I mean, nobody's taking the role over Mike Hilton, but if Mike Hilton does...
Yeah, because Mike Hilton missed a couple of games last year.
He did. I don't know. I would think that they're probably grooming DJ Turner for that role. Now, I'm not sure what role DJ Turner is most comfortable in. I haven't done too much too much digging into that. But just based off of DJ Turner's overall build and speed, I was thinking that they were going to try to transition him to take over that role from Mike Hilton in the couple years.
And I think that, speaking of Dax Hill, he's kind of perfect to transition into that final defensive position group, and it's the safeties. I think it's clearly the biggest question mark on this defense. When you lose two starting safeties who were good, there's obvious questions. Like, I mean, how confident are you in Dax Hill and Nick Scott?
So, I'm confident in Dax Hill. I think that, like, last season, he didn't have many reps. He didn't look great last year, but given more reps, in training camp and another year in Lou's system, I think he seems like a prime candidate to make that big jump to a fairly productive starter on this defense. So I'm not too worried about him. Nick Scott, I don't know if he's going to really be like, yeah, he might be a starter, but I really think you're going to see that other safety spot be platooned a little bit more this year. And now I know Lou has said in the past, like the defensive back starters or whatever, it's kind of like the offensive line. You really want those guys in for every snap together. There's a lot of cohesion that takes place in the secondary. So I don't know. I'm not too confident in Nick Scott's coverage ability. He is graded very poorly in coverage per PFF throughout his career. Now, where Nick Scott does provide a big upside, though, is in the run game. Where
he's Von Bell.
He is. He is Von Bell or Jesse. I mean, Jesse was always rated as a better run defender than he was in coverage as well. So it's interesting to see, but also like Bond wasn't too bad in coverage last year either. So that's where I'm kind of worried about Nick Scott. I'm actually pulling up the grades right now just to see where he's at, because I think his coverage grade was like really low.
Yeah, and I think that there is some concern over that. And I don't even know if concern's the right word. I guess I'm cautiously optimistic when I look into a guy like, because I think we've seen Dax Hill. We saw the play he made against the Packers. And again, I know it's one play. How much can you really read into one single play that happened in a game? But I think you saw there, he showed off his range on one single play. And I think Tyson Anderson has always been kind of this guy that we're like, who is this guy again? Like, what? We knew he was athletic, but didn't see him at all last year, and showed some good signs in that Packers game. And I think even like Tommy said, not going to harp on the taunting penalty with Battle, but the missed tackle against Washington proves he's got some growing to do. And I agree with that. But I think the one thing with Jordan Battle is you look at him and you ask, where did he play college football? And he played at Alabama. And Alabama is as close to an NFL program probably at the college level as you're going to get. He's playing against a bunch of guys who are playing right now in the NFL or are going to be playing in the NFL. And that's the one thing that makes me excited for Jordan Battle. And then everything that you always hear about him is that he's incredibly intelligent on football IQ, which for me, when I'm wanting a safety, I want the guy who knows what the heck is going on.
Yeah, you definitely need one. I mean, you need that for every position, but especially when you're playing, one of the center field positions on the defense. You have to be knowing the ins and outs of everything that's going on around you. And, I think that's where Battle could end up, taking the job later on in the year. I'm still very optimistic on him. And, he had a very up and down preseason,
but that's what you expect from a rookie.
Yeah. He's also, not to throw a pun in here, but he's the most battle-tested guy probably on the defense this season, this preseason. He's probably had the most snaps out of everybody, I would think.
I wish I had a sound effect here that would be boo.
Boo.
Boo. Yeah, no, I don't have that. In fact, I don't know that I really have any semblance of sound effects. That could be something that I can work
Okay.
on throughout there. But yeah, no. That boo though, you definitely get that. Boo. Well, I can maybe while I'm talking, maybe I can give you this. Let's see here. Let's see if I can. It's maybe as it's trying to load here. Let's see.
We're gonna get sued for putting that on the broadcast.
He just died, so it's okay. Shout out to Bob Barker.
Who is that
Remember,
from? Is that
That's
Bob
Price is
Barker?
Right. That's Price is Right.
Dude, RIP to Bob Barker, man. I
Yeah.
feel like
Remember to spay and neuter your pets.
dying right before your 100th birthday has got to be like.
Well, he went
that's
to his
gotta be as
close. He went to his close to 100 without going over.
So that is a very poetic. That is a very poetic ending to it. But if he weren't the Price is Right host and he died right before 100, I would think that's almost the equivalent to, I don't know, like having an interception at the end of a playoff game where you were getting your ass kicked all game, and then you have some magical fourth quarter where your team rallies back and you're up 16-15, and then Jeremy Hill fumbles the ball away, and then
Okay. No.
Montez
Okay.
lays somebody.
Nope. I'm gonna mute you. We're done talking about that. Nope. I'm not ready. Not mentally prepared to talk about the 2015 Bengals Steelers playoff game.
During the offseason, for all the true fans out there, can we make one episode that's like just like a group therapy session on that day? Like, I feel like I will never stop talking about that day.
If the Bengals win the Super Bowl this year, I am prepared for that. But until that happens,
we got to talk about this, man. It's traumatizing. We got to talk about past traumas, and I don't think there's any bigger trauma than that. Maybe the Joe Burrow ACL, but I don't think
Carson Palmer ACL.
No, I didn't really. Okay, I was only 8 when that happened, right?
I cried. So, I remember when it happened. I was watching it. I cried.
I didn't have much confidence in that team doing much in the playoffs that year, even though I was only 8 years old. But I was like, there's no way this team's getting past Peyton Manning, right? So, or Tom was on it. The Patriots are on a down year that year, but I didn't think anybody was making the past the Colts, including the 05 Bengals.
We're getting off topic. Return game. We touched on this, I know, a little bit last week. It sounds like Charlie Jones is your punt returner, and your kickoff returner is going to be who?
I'm going to go Travion to start out. I know I said Charlie Jones at first, but I think Charlie Jones, we talk about people that got some growing to do. I think Charlie Jones has got some growing to do in the return game, at least to start out. Because
I mean, he's also dealing with a torn labrum in his shoulder, which can't feel good. I did not know that. Yeah, he had the shoulder injury, which can't feel good that he's fighting through.
Why are we throwing him out there if he's got a torn labrum?
I think it's one of those things that he can't injure it anymore.
Okay.
And he's good enough to play. But I think the kickoff return, I'm very interested to see when they play the Browns here in a week and a half, who will trot out there to return that opening kick. Because I think there's a host of players that it could be.
Yeah, I know you touched on Chris Evans, and I really hope it's not, just given my past memories of watching Chris Evans in the kick return game. I think it's probably going to be Travion to start out. We'll probably see Charlie Jones take that role over later on in the year. But yeah, I would go Travion to start out.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think you're going to see a lot of Charlie Jones this year. That's part of the reason why they drafted him. Is they want a guy that, quote unquote, as Darren Simmons says, put the fear of God in the other team.
Now, I know it takes a specific skill set to be a kick returner in terms of, like, you got to actually learn how to catch the ball from that angle and stuff like that. But just given his pure explosiveness as a player and his speed, I'm surprised we haven't seen Iosivas have any sort of traction at that at getting that gig.
Now that you're saying this, I'm interested if he ever returned any punts at Princeton. I'm going to try and Google that right now. and see Andre Yoshavash, Princeton stats. Because Mick, I'm sorry, but I'm not an expert on the Princeton punt return game.
I don't even know if I don't even, do they have stats for Ivy League and Sports
Oh,
Reference?
of course they do. Of course they do. Well, no, I'm looking on the Princeton University website here as if my internet decides that it wants to work properly. Gosh, look at him. Princeton's uniform's really cool there. That's cool. Okay, we're looking at his stats here, see if it'll load and see if he returned any punts here. And now obviously it doesn't want to work. This is great podcasting too, Mick, that we're just Google.
On the spot,
how fast can we Google
here.
things?
I'm trying to see.
Yes, because we were if we were good at our jobs, we would. I would be surprised if Princeton has a sport reference, aspect of that. Okay, I'm wanting to look at the stats, not his bio. I've already seen that. Okay, let's see here. Does he have any? It doesn't appear that he had any special team stats. So maybe he didn't have anything like that.
I don't think he did.
He did run the ball 4 times for 10 yards in his career, including having a 12-yard rush at Harvard.
It's probably
I know. Why am I saying this? I know you were probably watching the Princeton at Harvard football game last year.
Yeah, it was a great game. Go. I guess I'd root for the Tigers because they're closest to the Bengals.
Oh, there you go. Can you name Harvard's nickname? Do you know this?
Yeah, Crimson. Again, the Crimson.
Good job. Again, we're getting way off topic. Also, this week, and I'm curious if you had the chance to watch it. I have about 5 minutes left in it, and I haven't been able to. Have you watched From the Jungle yet? The Bengals' new Hard Knocks.
Is this the YouTube documentary or whatever?
I have about 5 minutes left in it. I've been watching it on my lunch break, so I've been sitting eating my sandwich here over at my kitchen table and watching a little bit of it. It's good. I've enjoyed it.
My favorite quality pretty high.
Yes. My favorite part, and I wish they'd shown more of it, and there could be more in the last couple of minutes, is they brought in a professional ping pong player because they have a lot of ping pong wars, and the guy was playing against some of the team members. And they didn't show a lot of it, but I just loved the reaction of some of these guys going up. I think I saw Tyler Boyd going up against him, and it was just really, really interesting. Tommy writes in and says that he doesn't think he returned kicks or punts at Princeton.
We don't think he did either.
In a quick Google, I didn't see anything, but I don't know. I mean, he could be a potential great athlete. I wouldn't be against it.
It requires a lot of coordination, and you got to train yourself to catch from a certain angle. I remember
you mean catching the punt is part of the job? Did somebody tell Darius Phillips?
According to Darren Simmons, it's the most important job.
Did Darius Phillips miss that day of practice?
Yeah,
he might have had the flu that day.
Is he even on an NFL roster? What's his?
He was with the Raiders last time I checked. Was him. And I did see a question too that was dropped in by Steve a few minutes ago. We were in the middle of talking about something else. Let's see. Not counting Mixon, how do you feel about the running back room as whole? I'm optimistic. I think Chase Brown showed me a lot in the final preseason game against the Commanders. Now, again, I know it was up against, the third string defense for the Commanders, but I think he had some really nice runs.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty confident in the running back room. I don't think you need to be just as good as you were last year. And, we could say we're not counting on Mixon. I think Mixon still provides value as a starting running back on the roster. But yeah, I think I was pretty happy with the way Chase Brown played. And then honestly, all three of the backups looked pretty solid this preseason for the most part. Well,
I was a little surprised.
Travion didn't play, but
yeah, I was a little surprised that Salyers or whatever his name is didn't make the practice squad. I liked him. He had some good runs against the Commanders. Maybe it was his choice. Maybe he's thinking he can go on a practice squad of another team, but that one was one that was kind of interesting to me. They ended up taking the other guy, I think Calvin Tyler, I think is who I said, from Utah State. I don't know. But I liked what I saw from Salyers, whatever his name was. Sal, whatever his name was, from East Carolina, I think, or no, East Tennessee.
Okay,
East Tennessee.
that's fine. East Carolina, that's a big boo for me.
What's wrong with East Carolina?
They're like one of Marshall's biggest rivals, East Carolina.
Listen, we don't need to talk about Marshall. They're too chicken to play the tops. We can touch a little bit NFL wide. Were there any big surprises cuts? Because I think one of the biggest surprise cuts that came out yesterday was Bailey Zappi. And then I think it was kind of surprising too that he passed through waivers and nobody put a claim in on him, which is kind of interesting to me.
That is pretty surprising. And I saw something about it. I was like, I think I saw like some notification saying, "Oh yeah, the Patriots would love to bring back Bailey Zappi." And I was like, "They get rid of him? Like what's going on here?" Tommy, yes, go Herd. WVU. We talk about teams that are too chicken to play each other. WVU, ever since they almost lost to Marshall like 12 years ago in like the first or second year of the Doc Holliday era, they were like, screw this shit. We're not playing Marshall ever again. We can't lose to our little brother school, even though, you know, they have a like almost an impeccable bowl record in the past 30 years. And, you know, we had one of the best college football quarterbacks to ever play. And sorry, I'm going on a tangent, man.
Brandon Doughty, Mike White, and Bailey Zappi did not play for, and Austin Reed, none of them played for Marshall.
Who the hell is Austin Reed?
That's Western's quarterback right now. He's the leading returning player.
Yes, Tommy, that is the year Marshall shit the bed. That is the year where they tanked.
Was that also the year that they lost 67-66?
No, that was a couple years after.
Don't I have to drop one of those?
That was a crazy game.
Great game.
We should just later on during the offseason, we're out of shit to talk about. Let's just air the 2014 Marshall WKU game.
Because I'm sure that our millions of listeners really care.
If you guys even know what I'm talking about, that might be the craziest football game I've ever watched.
I'm not sure that I knew that Lou Anarumo.
It was a defensive backs coach in the early 2000s over there. That's
interesting. So I guess not everything that has ever been at Marshall is awful.
One of the best college football. We have, I'd say, two of the best college football quarterbacks ever. Well, I don't know. Chad Pennington's up there, but he was also throwing to Randy for one of those years. So like
Chad Pennington, the head coach at Lexington Sayre High School.
That guy's revitalized that program. Hasn't he gone like undefeated the past 2 years?
No, they're not that good. But
they're not.
No, they're fine. They're not quite that good.
Rakeem Cato, man, Rakeem Cato.
He's no Brandon Doughty.
I wish that guy made an NFL roster, but that guy is so small.
That'll pretty much wrap us up because we are getting way off topic for the show. Next week, season preview show. We're going to preview. We're going to make, our bold predictions. Mick, I think we might even just go game by game, make our predictions. What's the record going to look like? How do we see the season pulling out? Will this finally be the year that the Lombardi is picked up here in Cincinnati? I think we're gonna tackle into all of those questions, and also we got to break down the Browns Bengals.
Yeah, it's the season's getting here. It's coming. We've got 8 days until the first legit NFL action takes place. We've got 11 days until we see our team play in legit NFL action. Thanks for the love there, Tommy. We love you, Tommy.
Absolutely. No, I can't wait until we can actually play some real football.
Yeah, no, can't wait either. And obviously we'll be previewing that Browns game. It should be a pretty fun one to watch.
And then I know at some point we're maybe going to debut a brand new segment with your wife, right?
Yeah, I got to talk to her more about it. But my wife's football is Sam. Her name's also Sam.
And your sister is?
Yeah, my sister's name is Sammy. It's a weird thing. I get it. It's like you ever watch Parks and Rec?
Oh yeah, it's the Tammy thing.
On SWAT, yes. The Tammy thing. But yeah, we're talking about Sam maybe coming on the show, and we're just gonna throw some random trivia questions at her about the Bengals, or just about NFL players in general, because now she watches. Well, now she's been watching TikTok, but now like she knows who Cody Ford is because of apparently his wife or his girlfriend was TikToking or live streaming when the final rosters were coming out, and now she knows who Cody Ford is. So
interesting. Of all Bengals, me expecting her to know, I wouldn't have assumed Cody Ford would be on that
list. I
list.
remember Cody Ford in that moment. She's like, you know anybody the last guy named Ford? He made the final man roster for the Bengals, and I was like, no, I don't know who. And then she's
Henry?
Like, was like Jerome Ford, running back. No, he plays for the Browns, but no, I was like, she's like, yeah, it's Cody Ford. And I was like, oh crap, like yeah, that's that guy. Definitely, I was talking about him making the 53-man roster a couple weeks ago or last week. So I don't know. She's gaining a lot of sports knowledge. I'm very proud of her.
So that'll be perfect. That'll be a segment that we can look forward to as well. Our season preview as well next week. Looking forward to it.
For sure.
That'll wrap us up for this week's episode number 3 of Jungle Juice. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on social media. Follow the Houday Nation Today page as well as the Jungle Juice podcast page. Follow both of those. Join the Houday Nation Facebook group. And is that all of our promos? Did I check them all off? Oh wait, we didn't talk about the Burrow contract. Is it going to happen in the next week?
This is going to happen in 2024. I'm coming to terms with this.
I'm going to continue to say that I have faith that it's going to happen this week.
So I hope it happens. I really hope it happens. But if we get to the regular season, it's here. It's not happening until next.
Yes, time. that I will definitely agree with. Mick, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, thanks for watching, guys. See you next week.
Houday.
Houday.